Hello, everybody, and welcome to another House Salt Book Club. We read Set Fire to the Gods by Sara, Raasch, and Kristen Simmons this month, so we're going to be talking about that, obviously. I literally just finished this book and sat down to do this, so a little whirlwindy right now, but I will let everybody else introduce themselves and tell you what they rated the book. So like I said, I'm Mari, and I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It was fine.
Hi, I'm Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. You're on my channel, so you probably knew that. I gave this a 2. Didn't love it. Didn't hate it enough to give it a 1. I just felt like no feelings about it, and I will forget about these characters within 2 weeks. So, yeah. Also, I'm having technical difficulties with my Wi-Fi, so if I drop out, sorry about it.
Hi, I'm Paige from Minimal Bookie, and yeah, I would give this, I'm leaning more like on the 3-star, 2.5, 3-star. Like the end was better than I expected it to be, but the rest of it was a big shock for me. So
Hi, I'm Connor. My channel is just Connor O'Brien, and I also just finished this like 10 minutes ago. So I haven't really thought about what rating I would give it. I think I'll probably give it like a 3-star. I enjoyed it. It was fun, but again, like Sam said, I'm probably not going to like have these characters concretely in my mind for a very long time.
I'm Jordan from the channel, The Jordan Journals, and I finished it maybe like 45 minutes ago, so I have a little bit more time to think about it, but I'm somewhere in like the upper 3, almost like upper 3 range, maybe like a 3.75 out of 5 stars, I think.
I am Kayla from Bookadoodles, and I gave this around like 3 to 3.5 stars, and I might read the sequel. I probably will read this.
Before we continue, before Mari gets into this, I just want to do like a call out of all of my friends for like 2 seconds, because we were supposed to do this live show last weekend, and these people all started the book. I haven't even started it yet. They all started it, right? And I simply moved away so I don't have to read things last minute because this gives me anxiety. And they were like, yeah, it's fine. So I finished the book before all of them, and I started like 3 days after, and we delayed the live show. So I'm just saying, like, I don't like fault them for this, but like, I don't know. I'm judging.
Listen,
like
you give us more time. If you give us more time, we're gonna take more time.
That's what I'm saying.
Put the book down. You're like, oh, there's more. I don't even need to. I don't even need it.
I really don't have a lot to say about this book, so we're going to talk on this for a moment. I don't know what it is about like needing. I don't do TBRs, so that's a me thing. But I don't know what it is about having to read something with a deadline that immediately puts my brain in procrastination mode. Like it doesn't matter if I'm enjoying it, if I wanted to read it, if I'm excited about it. If I know I have to meet it by a deadline, my brain's like, oh, you have time, you can do that later. You have time, you can do that later. And I literally woke up this morning and went, holy shit. Like I need to like cram an entire book into today. So it like that is no reflection on my enjoyment of the book usually, but if you give me more time, I'm going to take more time to read it.
I woke up this morning and I had 10 hours left of the audiobook, and I was like, I don't know. But I just finished.
Oh, God.
I cannot live.
I've been carrying the book around the house with me for like 5 weeks now. And my mom's like, are you supposed to be reading that? I'm like, yeah, but if I carry it with me, eventually it'll start reading itself, right?
Oh my God.
I think it was I did start it last week and I was like, oh, look at me go, like I'm on top of things. But I think part of the problem was that I listened to it on audiobook. So I listened to the first 2 chapters, which change in point of view. So one from Matic and then one from Ash. And then I had to go back and re-listen to it because I felt like I wasn't understanding what was happening and the way that she was just like they were throwing everything at us initially, which is funny for me to think about now because by the end I was like, all right, already. Like the repetition in the world building got to a point where I was like, okay, this is too much. So how did you guys feel overall about the world building and how it happened across the book?
I was also really confused in the beginning, and I'm like, it shouldn't be this hard. Like, it shouldn't be this difficult to understand. So, like, it was a struggle. And I think that's why it was extra sloggy for me in the beginning. But, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I had to reread the first, like, 60 pages twice to really understand what was happening.
I started taking notes because I thought it was going to be really difficult to keep track of everything. But because it is so repetitive, like it's like I know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's the 6 children and they killed the mom. So
yeah, I noticed like between the chapters, because you said like there's 2 different perspectives. Somebody would say something in one chapter and then they would repeat it in the other person's perspective as well. I'm like, you don't have to do. We just read it. We get it. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't feel like it was complicated at the beginning, but I also just like, as soon as I started reading it and started seeing like all the elemental magic, which I knew going in, but I was like, oh, we're doing like basic YA elemental magic. Okay, cool. So like, I just didn't even pay attention to it because I was like, I'll know, because I know that these books tend to like beat you over the head with their magic. So I'm like, I'll eventually figure out what's going on. So yeah, I didn't like notice it being difficult, but I also like wasn't super tuned into it from like the get-go either. I was like, oh, it's elements. Okay.
Yeah, so here was like the fight at the beginning because like we don't really understand like who has access to the magic and who doesn't. So I didn't really get like there was trickery going on during the fight. I was like, what is happening right now? There's too much words that I don't know how to pronounce. I'm very
I was so focused on her calling her mom by her first name like all the time.
Yes.
Like I wasn't even paying attention to the fight. I was like, why is she calling her? And like I get some people do that, but I was like, is she gonna refer to her as her mom? Like that's her mom. That's not just Char. So I was really focused on that part.
I'm really relieved to hear that I wasn't the only one, because I like went back and I was like, I need to replay this. And it was that feeling of like, it shouldn't be this difficult because it's like elemental magic. It is, you know, pretty basic, I guess, YA fantasy kind of in its structure and story. And then also it's like gladiator based. So I'm like, I know like gladiators, you fight and whatnot. But I think, Paige, you nailed it. And it was that it's like these fights with magic, but first they introduce fighting and then the magic. And so I was like, wait, what are we doing here? So I kept going back thinking that that was going to like help me understand. And I was like, oh, it's not me, it's the book. Did you guys, so kind of sticking like with the, we'll get to characters, I guess, but you know, with this idea of it, I don't know, at first I was like, it feels really nostalgic, I guess, for like YA that I was reading in like 2012. And then I was like, why? Is it basic? Is that like what we're coming down to? But I don't know. Did you feel the same way about sort of the plot structure of it as well?
I actually texted Sam and I was like about 100 pages in at this point, so it did get better for me. But I was like, why does it feel like I'm reading a Fallen Kingdoms book right now?
I had just read that before this too.
Yep, and that's when I responded like, this is peak basic YA. Which like is not saying that it's like bad necessarily, but I was like, ooh, I've read this. Like I know exactly how this is gonna go. I know how the villains are gonna be. Like I just know I know how the love story is gonna go. Like so it wasn't. I don't know. I wasn't actively like I'm making a ton of faces because I think that's just the day I'm having. But like, it wasn't the book that I was mad at. Like I wasn't like oh god, basic YA is so shit. Like it wasn't like that. I was just like, oh, like I don't have to focus too much because like I already know. And I was right. I mean, like not about some of the twists that we'll get to, but like I kind of could predict most of the other stuff and like character arcs and stuff like that.
And like the tone of it was very familiar from like early
YA
fantasy. So, I mean, it was like one of those things that it was comforting because I knew exactly how it was going to be, and I haven't been reading very much recently. So it was just nice because I could easily consume this story without it like taxing me. But yeah, it was very reminiscent of early YA.
Mm-hmm.
And like I tried to read the Seven Realms series once, and the beginning of that first book kind of was slow like this too to get into the world and everything. So like it definitely has that, I want to say like nostalgia feel kind of. So I'm not sure if it was charming or not. So I'm still undecided on that.
I think it depends on like what kind of mood you're in, but I feel like, you know, like I read romance, for instance, because I want certain tropes and I like the way that it feels like very comfy and I know exactly what's going to happen. And in a way, this reminded me of that. Like this is exactly the YA fantasy tropes that you would expect. So I feel like if you're in the mood for like a comfy read, but in fantasy with like the gore and the fighting, like this would be like a comfy fight gore read. I don't know. like that's how
comfortable blood.
Gore.
This is my favorite type of YA fantasy. Sorry, my cat is like tunneling behind me in these pillows. I don't know what she's doing.
I feel like for me, because I literally had just finished like watching Watchmen from like last year, the limited series, And like the way they like adapted something was so interesting to me. And I feel like that's what I like more from like when I dive into like more fantasy speculative fiction. I like things that like challenge tropes. So something that was so like reliant on tropes was sort of frustrating for me just coming from that experience. Like I also haven't read YA fantasy in a very long time, so it was sort of strange for me. I was like, oh, this is like a like flashback for me to like the beginning of like my booktube channel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is like my favorite kind of reading. I love traditional YA fantasy with like all of these tropes. So this was right up my alley. And it was comforting and I loved it. I love stuff like this.
It was so easy to read in that regard that like I just, I make the joke and I talk about it all the time now. Like sometimes in quarantine, it's like the media that literally my last 2 brain cells can like pay attention to and like be entertained by, but isn't like taxing my emotions or anything. Like I'm not stressed. And that's how I felt through this whole thing. I was like interested. I was like, enjoying reading it, but also like, I don't know, a fireball could have like consumed all of them and they all could have died and I would have been like, okay. Like I didn't have any attachments to any of the characters. I wasn't really like rooting for a specific ending. Like I was just there for the ride. Whatever happened sort of thing. Did you guys have any strong attachments to any of the characters? I guess our 2 main characters are Ash and Maddock, and we go back and forth between their 2 perspectives. So we'll start with Maddock. How did you guys feel about his character? Any attachment? Any feelings? Any opinions?
I feel like he's a himbo.
He could be a himbo. That's a good point.
I really liked Maddock. She just the author just posted like all of her, she did like across all of her books and like what astrology sign they would be, and Maddock was a Cancer, and I just felt like
that feels correct.
Yes, and I was like, he's my little Cancer buddy.
That definitely feels correct. I wish I would have seen that.
Yeah, I feel like just like you said himbo, and like that I definitely at one point during the reading experience I was like, he's a himbo, like 100%. I should love him more, but like because like it was in third person and we were switching perspectives, like I was leaning more toward Ash because she has more agency, I feel like, because he was very much in his feelings, which I guess as a Cancer was kind of annoying because I'm like, I get this all the time, give me something new.
Yeah, I found myself between the 2 perspectives, wondering which author wrote which. Like, are they like a switch off author pair or not? I kind of feel like they were because it just felt like it was a slightly different writing styles, but maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, I didn't really care that much. Like I'm trying to think of like something poignant about him that stuck out, and like nothing does. Like the mad at his dad, daddy issues. Dad's an asshole. I don't know. Like I'm just like I think I think the problem I was having, and I wasn't actively comparing it to other books, but I'm doing it now as I'm thinking about it. And I was like, okay, like, and again, it's not the same. Don't come for me. But like, I was like, well, Nevernight did this better with like the gladiator fight and like the evil dad, and like, other books with like fight. I don't know. I just was like, this has been done better, so I want you to bring me something else with these characters and different motivations than like the things I'm expecting, and I'm just not getting that out of this. So that's what was like frustrating for me. Again, I didn't like actively hate them. I wasn't like hoping for a fireball to come and kill them, which has happened before in books I've read. But I was just like, yeah, like anything could happen to you and I wouldn't be like upset.
Right. Yeah. And I think even like the thing that's supposed to be like, ooh, the most interesting about him is like his special magic. But that was one of the things that I felt was most telegraphed from the beginning. He was like, I could feel what she was feeling. And I was like, that's something obvious.
Right.
I mean, I thought the magic was cool, what he ended up being able to do. But unfortunately, she repeated it so much. And it wasn't even like one time that they said that. And then like you forgot about it. And then later it was constant. Like, ooh, he felt her feelings. And there all the feelings in the world he was feeling. And I was like, okay, I get it. All right, so how about Ash? Did you feel better about her as a character, more connected to her point of view?
I just thought she was more compelling. Like I feel like she had I don't know, we saw like her conflict from the beginning when she loses her mom, Char, and then like from that point, like she was sort of frustrating at some points because she became like, I felt like she was asking questions and I'm like, it's so very clear what the answer to these questions are and you keep repeating the same thing. But overall, I felt like her section was more interesting for me to read. Like I was excited when I got back to her part.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that she just had like a more interesting goal. Like she wanted to kill the flame god. And like that was interesting to see because she kept having to shift like how she was going to go about doing that. With Matic, he just wants to save his sister, and it just stays the same. And like the price for his sister just keeps going up, and that's like the only thing that changes for his situation. So I found Ash to be more interesting just because she was trying to do things and like maneuver and attempt to be sly, even though she's very blunt about things.
Well, I think that she like already had her magic established and already like knew how to use it, and so that was more interesting to see because we got to see that from her and understand more like the magic system from her side, whereas Matic doesn't know anything that he's doing from the beginning.
I think she's definitely like the more dynamic character. Like I think she changes as the book goes on. Like she starts to question, should she really be killing Ignitus? I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
Sure.
Yes. Audiobook says yes.
I'm dealing with those like repercussions and thought process, and I don't know. I thought that was really interesting. Like, is he the greater evil or is he the lesser evil? Like, what is she supposed to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't care about her either, but I did like I did like at the end when like her and Ignitus like almost teamed up for like 2 seconds before he died. Like that's when I found her like more interesting. I was like, ooh, she's gonna have to like team up with the guy that sort of like ruined her life, but like he didn't know what to do. Like I found that thing kind of compelling. Like, and I actually Ignitus might have been like my favorite character, which is interesting. I mean, I have like a ton to choose from, but like I did find his like motivations of what he was trying to do when we figure out that, you know, he was actually trying this whole time to not let his like nation be destroyed, even though he was still like not caring as much as he could have. Like I found that more interesting. I felt like he was the most complex of all the characters. So I liked her interactions with him the most, and then he died. So
I think it's such a like I don't know, it summarizes a lot of the experience in this. There's like, ooh, an interesting thing. Oh, he died. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I liked Ash. And I agree that her story was just like bigger and the scale was bigger of like what she was trying to accomplish, which could have been cool to like put them, you know, juxtapose those two things, like, you know, his very small mission for my sister and her like large mission to kill God. But we didn't really know anything about Maddox's relationship with his sister. And the only way the authors kept trying to like, you know, sell that to us was like, she saved me when I was a kid. And I was like, great, but that's all you keep saying. Like, there's no emotional tie there. There was nothing to really like hook us. So all of the shiny stuff that Ash was doing was so much more interesting to me. And I wanted to care about this guy and his sister, but I don't know, it kind of got drowned out in the rest of the story.
Yeah.
And that's speaking of characters that were like, oh, that.
Go ahead.
Connor.
Me? Oh, okay. You know, characters that you were like, I think this could be interesting, and then they die. The sister is one of those characters. Like, she is incredibly powerful, and then she's like fighting off this rock situation, and then she just dies. I was like, dang it.
Gets squished. Like,
okay, when the rock lands on her, I was like, did that just happen?
Yeah.
Right. It was such a compelling moment of her like fighting back and you being like, oh my God, she's so powerful. Like, here she comes. And then it was like, that was it.
Yeah. And then like, again, I get so focused on this in this book on like weird stuff. But then when he was like, taking care of her body and bringing her back, I was like, she's squished. Like, how are we preparing her body? Like, I mean, I guess I've never seen a squished person before. Like, that's never been a death that I've had to deal with before. So maybe I don't know what they look like. But like, to me, I'm like, that's a pulverized person. Like, how are we preparing her body and bringing her back to her family? Like,
I like that this is what you're thinking as like
wrapping her body Sam's like, she's smushed.
I was like, are we embalming her? Like, what is? I don't know. That was my train of thought. I was like, what is going on? But yeah, like she was an interesting character that I was like, what? But it kind of like you were saying earlier, Mari. Like the authors kept repeating about how like Ash's story is bigger than his, but then never made his interesting. Like, but they were like aware because even he was like, oh my God, Ash is trying to do all this stuff for her nation and blah blah blah, and it's all just about my sister, and we're all like, yeah. But still nothing.
I was totally gonna ask. Oh, because he has a brother too, whose name I am completely forgetting right now.
Elias.
Yeah.
Also completely eaten up by the story, or like I don't know. I just felt like he was such a background character, which is weird because of the way that it started and it presented it. It felt like these two people were like gonna team up and do something, and then most of the time everybody was like, "Where is he? Where is he? Where is he?" Like I think he was just gone.
I feel like he's gonna come back as a villain later on.
Because
like he's in the jail. He's in the jail. He's fairly powerful. Like there's no god in that nation anymore. Like something's gonna happen there. He's definitely coming back. I hope as a villain.
I was really mad at him. Like, I didn't understand where all this blame was coming from when he like started attacking Ash. Yeah. I was like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
Do you think the villain lady will come and take the brother?
Maybe. There we go.
I mean, these are really good theories. I honestly think they're too interesting for whatever's going to happen. But
I mean, what's likely to happen based on this book is he'll get like slightly interesting in book 2, and then she'll eat him. You know, I mean, I know, like not literally, like you know, she'll eat his kidnap.
Oh man, I don't know. Okay, I guess we'll move on to the god characters. So the names in this were also really annoying. I know that like, you know, it's a thing to like match your name to power or whatever, but I just find it so like Ash and Char, and like his name was like Matic, rhymes with rock. Yeah. And then you have like Unitas. I get it. It's a thing. I just don't enjoy it. So anyways, how did we feel about the gods? Sam, you already kind of said that Ignitus was your favorite character.
Yeah, he was the coolest, I think. Again, like just what I said earlier, that he was probably the most complex. Like the how do you even say the
Geoxys?
What?
Oh,
Geoxys?
Okay, that's not how I was pronouncing it.
I don't know, guys. I was listening on 3 speeds. So.
Yeah, like Geoxys from the get-go, I was like, okay, they're trying to say this whole like he's Father God, he's so nice, and I was like, no, he's not, obviously. So yeah, like the other, and then we hear a little bit about the other ones. Again, the things that I was like focusing on were like, besides the 4 main elements, we also have plant magic and animal magic, and I was like, well, that's Earth. Like, so I was like really thrown off by these 2 added elements that were also nature magic that we don't hear about them really, but I'm still like, what? So yeah, like I mean, those were the only 2 gods, but like it was just Geoxys. I didn't care.
I pictured Ignitus as like a mix between Jafar and Hades.
Yes.
Hades was all I was picturing when I was reading. Especially because they described his flame as blue, and I was like, well, this is very obviously who we all think it is. Yeah, I think he was I'm curious to see the other gods, like the ones that don't battle. Like, I'm more curious to see, like, I would want to read on just to see what those, like, cities and, like, worlds look like, because I feel like those would be really interesting.
Yeah.
And it's definitely set up for, like, a field trip kind of adventure in the second book, so.
Yeah.
Journey trip.
I love that.
The gods really reminded me of, it's like just straight Roman mythology or Greek mythology, like Mother Earth or whatever had these 6 children and then they like put her away. It's just very reminiscent of those things, and even some of the gods, like how they're set up, are similar to Greek mythology or Roman mythology. Like they have the air god, which is Zeus, and fire, which is one of them. I kind of like thought of like Poseidon and all of that, and how there's 3 guys and 3 girls, I believe. So I thought that was interesting. I'm also really curious about seeing what some of these other gods are doing. Like, what are the peaceful gods doing during this time, and are they actually peaceful or not? I'm not sure if I'll continue the series, but I am curious about that one thing.
I guess the only... Go ahead.
The thing with, like, Seneca, aka Mother Goddess or whatever, that I was like, there was a trope there that I kind of expected was that, like, she was going to turn into not being, like, an old crone, and she didn't, so I was like, what? Because usually that happens, like, she's revealed, like, I was never ugly, ever, blah, blah, blah. That whole thing usually happens, and it didn't, so I was like, what the hell? But also, I didn't really, like, understand the gods' motivations a ton. Like, yes, we have, like, power-hungry gods who, like, want to blah, 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 but, like, why did she team up with Geoxtis? Like, what were they getting out of that dynamic? Like, why was he trusting her? Especially because Ignitus made it seem like she definitely didn't die from the beginning. So they all teamed up to kill her, and then immediately after, Geoxtis, like, teamed up with her. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, like, the motivation. I mean, granted, we probably didn't get all the motivation right there, but, like, it doesn't align enough for me to really believe what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, what specifically from the Earth Kingdom does she want that she would team up with him?
Sort of, or just, like, why would he, like, you just defeated her. Why would you then think that she's going to, like, work with you when you just defeated her to, like, help you out? Because, like, he just was like, yeah, she's going to do this for me. And it's like, what gives you the idea that that's what's going to happen? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And besides him just being, like, we have the mustache twirlingness of, like, the whole thing with, like, you know, Maddox's dad and, you know, her and Geoxtis and Maddox's dad being in love with her.
That was weird.
Even though, like, right after
that was a weird moment.
I don't understand what is happening with, like, the gods, really. Like, the motivations there are just like, I need more from this.
I like during that scene when, like, Maddox, like, paused and he's like, I wish Elias was here so we could laugh about this.
Where was Elias? Nobody ever knows. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When Seneca first showed up again, and they're like, "It's Seneca!" I literally sent a message to everybody like, "Who's Seneca?" Like, that went completely over my head. And then later, I kind of like, oh, okay, I kind of get her significance, but all of that at the end was a little bit. It's weird because it's so simple in certain regards, but it also felt like very convoluted. And I guess it's because we don't really understand, like Sam was saying, any of the character motivations. So they're just like making all of these connections. It's like that, like the meme or the gif of the guy with like the strings and this thing with this person and over here, and I'm like, wait. I don't think that we're missing any other characters. I don't know. I honestly I don't know what else we can say about this book. The ending. How did you guys enjoy the ending?
I wish she hadn't gotten her powers back.
Yeah.
Not so soon. Like, she just got them taken away. Like, it was too soon. It was way too soon.
It was a very cheap moment, like, because I don't know. I guess I don't know. I think that it was too much of like, and now she's without her powers, and then it was like, turn the page, her powers are back.
Yeah.
Why even do that? Like, I don't know.
The only reason I could think of is that he had to do something with all that built up magic that he's absorbed, and he had to like give it to somebody. So he ends up giving it to her, but like. Still, I really wish that she had to struggle with having to like overcome the fact that she doesn't have her fire powers, because that's a huge point in the book, is that she's like tiny and dainty and like small and not strong. And so like having to see her, or like getting able to see, can I speak? Being able to see her get stronger in the second book would have been really interesting, but now she has her fire magic back. So she's back to being super strong.
Will she have any like repercussions or consequences from having like
his soul,
that fire magic? Because it's not just like her average fire magic.
Right, and is she like the fire god? Because it's like, did he give all the fire magic to her, or just like enough to give her powers back? Like,
yeah.
I like that she got it back through a like hot and heavy kiss.
Well, he doesn't have to give it like that way every time. Imagine how awkward that would be if he gets the power in real time.
Oh my god! In the middle of the fight, she's like, "Hit me! Hit me!"
No, I'm picturing like the Witcher fight. Sorry for people that like haven't seen the show, but like Yennefer like running at Geralt in the middle of a fight. Anyway, it doesn't work like that in that series. The like love scene at the very end too, I thought was like really weirdly placed, because like usually you have the, like characters confessing feelings at like the 70-75% mark, you know, for like the first book in a YA series. And I was like, oh, we're gonna have like sort of like a love scene at like the very, very end, like the last, like the epilogue,
like the last page.
Yes.
That's weird. So I felt like that was just like the timing of things was like a little off. And then I mean I knew this was gonna happen, but I was like, oh, you guys love each other. Oh, she's like the most important thing in your world now. Oh, okay. Like, cause that like he literally
forgot he had a brother.
Cool.
Okay. When they were first being introduced and like the whole thing was being introduced, even though the first part of this book is slower and the second part like picks up, there were a lot of things about setting it up and like the fights and stuff that I found more interesting versus like when we were like doing the whole gods thing at the end. But I was like really excited for their dynamic to be more like we have to fight each other, we have to kill each other. Yeah. And they only ever really do that one time. And it's like, without your magic, just, you know, a little bit. It wasn't enough. Like I wanted them to like do more of like that, like fighting, screaming at each other, and like no, but I don't want to hurt you. That contentious thing. It wasn't enough. I like their dynamic, and I would have liked it more if it had started more antagonistic, like at the beginning, and then grown, but it didn't.
I'm surprised that in this book there wasn't like a huge misunderstanding. And then they fought again, and like that one was more intense. Like I'm shocked that did not happen.
There were a couple of moments where it could have, with like Cassia dying, and then with the fire god dying. Like there were moments where they could have had an antagonistic fight, and it just never went there.
I'm glad it didn't go there though after like Cassia died, because then Elias attacked her, and I'm like, okay, so we're gonna spend like 50 pages now, like with Maddox not realizing what went on, but
Yeah, I thought they were going to go that direction too, and I was like, please don't, because it's so obvious that like your dad is lying to you, this guy that's been awful to you for your whole life. So like, because he kept kind of being like, that can't be true, and I was like, because it's not. So like, I'm glad that they didn't go down that route either, but I expected them to. Like, there were definitely some certain things that I was like, oh, I thought you were going to go this way and you didn't. So that's.
You had mentioned before that there were like some twists that you didn't quite see. Did we talk about them, or were there other things that you were like, oh, okay?
I'm trying to remember, because I just remember focused on like some of the weird stuff. I didn't expect that they were going to like team up with Ignitus for like 2 seconds before he died. I didn't see Seneca being like the mother goddess and her and Petros being in love. I think that was probably it.
I was surprised that we had two gods' deaths in like 2 pages. I thought that happened very quickly.
Yes.
Especially because he drained all of the magic from the fire god to kill him, but then Giacchus was just stabbed. And I felt like that was such an easy way to kill him.
Yeah. I think he drained him too, though, right?
And he drained him, yeah.
I was unsure if that was actually happened or not.
It was
just
like
clear.
What?
Ash was distracting him while
he was being drained.
Yeah, and then like I think I wasn't really expecting all of them to die, like including his dad too, because it's like, oh, I thought they were gonna like carry over into the next book. Not that I'm gonna read it, but like I thought that was gonna happen, and then I'm like, oh, so now it's like just gonna be the mother goddess potentially, or these other gods coming in, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was definitely expecting the dad to be around more.
Maybe it's like 2 gods per book, and then the last one will be like the mother goddess shows up in every book just to be like, and then like runs off into the next book.
Is it gonna be a trilogy?
I think it's only a duology.
Yeah, because it's vibes.
Are you kidding? We have so many other things to do. How are they going to fit this in?
I don't know for sure, but I thought I remember seeing that it was only a duology.
I feel like we're not like I say like I'm gonna read it. I feel like they're not gonna talk about some of the gods. Like I feel like they're like some of them, even though we're like, oh, let's see the plant god, it's gonna be like, no, we're not even gonna show you that one.
I think we'll definitely see the water goddess.
Yeah,
because he was brought up in this one.
The air one was mentioned, like not the air goddess wasn't mentioned, but like air magic was mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, plant magic and animal magic was like not mentioned at all, other than it existed.
Right.
I think that this world probably requires more than 2 books, but this plot in this specific book did not need 400 something pages. Like that was like completely unnecessary, especially through the middle when it was just like them asking a bunch of questions and like plotting with that one other guy, what's his name, Tor or whatever. And like, they're like plotting and he's like, what can we do? And she's like, I know, I'll ask Ignitus. And that was like always the plan. The plan was always that she was just going to go ask Ignitus. And I was like, congrats. Okay, great plan. So if at like 100 pages less, and this could have been like a tight, fast-paced, like YA fantasy that hits like a ton of tropes and you just be like, yeah, bam, 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 and the end. But it's just too much world for like 300 pages also. So I don't know. It's some weird middle thing.
That's really common with Sara Raasch's books, is there's a lot of world building and it's like the world is too big for the stories sometimes. And it's like really hard to get into at the beginning of the books. That's how the last series I read by her was too.
It's also interesting that all 6 of these gods decided to be so close to each other. Like, I feel like they're all, like, geographically very close together. I'm like, wouldn't you guys, like, spread out more?
Like, we don't know how big this world is. Maybe it's a very small planet.
Maybe.
Very small planet. Big enough to be like our very small planet. Oh, my God.
Kind of like the Avatar map if we're going to compare. Like, if we're going to use the comps or whatever.
Yes.
I didn't even look at the map. There's a map in the front of the book.
What?
There's a map in the front of the book because I have the book. I didn't look at it.
Yeah, this was new to me.
Yeah, see,
they're very close.
I'm not sure I like the way that map is drawn. I'm just putting that out there. Like I don't love that.
It's very artistic and less like directionally.
The shapes are very odd for me. I don't love it.
They're the land masses.
Don't love it. But yeah. I mean, I guess that proves that they will go on some kind of like road trip, like Kayla was saying, you know, around to all of them, I guess.
They're very close, so it's possible.
Yeah. That's why. The plot.
So somebody in the comments, we were talking about like the placement of the like love scene, and they said, I get annoyed when people are all, I need to talk about my feelings and the world is literally about to blow up. I'm 50-50 on this. Like there's some instances when I love that like, oh, everything's falling apart and they're like, we have to say this now kind of thing. And you're just like, yes, oh my gosh. But there are times that I'm like, pay attention. There's a monster right there. Like, I guess it really depends for me on like the context of it. And this is where I think that had they been in battle and they had like a moment before the battle and they were like, I just wanted to let you know. And he's like, I know. Like that would have been, I love it. Like, that's great. So I don't know. Context matters.
At least it wasn't like in the middle of a battle scene. Cause I hate when they're trying to like fight something and they're doing sound like you're fighting something. Why are you worrying about this?
There was a moment though, like they went into that like off chamber, like when everybody was coming after them and like they were gonna kiss or something, and I'm like, guys, there's literally like the world coming after you right now.
I was confused by that because they like go out of the arena and then just like right there into that room.
Tunnel.
I'm like, you guys need to run. Like, you guys gotta get out of there. They just like, we'll close this door, it'll be fine. Like, no, that's not how that works.
Anything else about this book that we haven't mentioned? I'm sorry, like that. It's such a 3-star book for me, and this is why I was like leaning towards it being 3-star. Like I was like, how do I feel about it? And I was like, I don't feel a lot about it. So those are my 3-star books. Like that's totally in the middle. Like this is good. I probably won't remember a ton about it, honestly. I could be convinced to continue on in the series. Like right now, I'm like, yeah, I'd totally read that. But I feel like in a year or two, when the second book actually comes out, I'm gonna be like, I remember nothing about that. I won't really feel like, I don't know, pulled to continue on. But I would totally read more from this. It was like a chill day of reading for me. A very intense day.
At 3 times speed.
I think the last thing I think I want to mention is like the comp titles of it being like Gladiator meets Avatar. I'm like, stop. Like it's the same as like when everything is compared to Harry Potter. It's like just because there's elemental magic does not make it Avatar. Like I get some of the similarities that they were trying to do there, you know, where like Matic has like all the abilities, you know, so he's like sort of like the Avatar, I get. But like no, like it doesn't have the same vibe like at all. So I'm like, please don't do that just because it's popular. And also like Avatar, I mean, I haven't even watched the whole series. I watched like 5 episodes, but like Avatar to me implies like these really good, fully fleshed out characters that like you love the villains, you love the heroes, you love everybody. And it's like, I didn't feel anything about any of these characters. So you're just like setting yourself up for failure. And then the gladiator stuff, it's like, yeah, it was a gladiator setting, but I didn't really feel like they were like really gladiators. Like there's other gladiator dynamics that you get from like gladiator media. And besides them calling people like Dominus occasionally, like that's all you really got. So again, it didn't live up to their expectation.
They really weren't gladiators. Like she's like, I'm a dancer, and the other guy's like, I was faking it.
Yeah,
faking it.
Yeah,
I'm a stonemason.
Yeah,
really funny. I hadn't even thought about that. They're like, this book about gladiators, and they're both like.
And she's like, you must not be a gladiator. Must not have been a gladiator for very long because you're still a good person. It's like,
Yeah, I think that the comps are a little, and it always happens with comp titles. It's like a publishing thing to like pick a title that you're going to be like, oh, I like that, and like match it up. And it usually is not in the favor of the story. There were a couple of things that did feel like Avatar-y, but it's just like those basic things like elemental magic. There's some things that felt very Legend of Korra to me. Just Ash felt more like a Korra kind of character. And in Legend of Korra, at the very beginning, they have these like duels between different fighters, and that felt more like what was happening than like gladiator style. But talking about it made me realize too that I don't know, I mean, obviously this is fantasy, you have to like suspend your disbelief or whatnot, but even the setup of like they're gods and they're powerful, but they're gonna fight wars in this arena. They were like, we're only gonna fight in this arena. Like there were moments where like constraining it that way, I was just like kind of like, I don't know, frustrated by, especially towards the end when like when you know the one girl is like under a rock dead, and like Tor and Ash are like under rocks too, and Ignitus shows up and he's like, that's it, brother, we're gonna fight tomorrow, still in the arena. I was like, really? I don't like up the stakes a little bit here.
They did keep referring to it as a war, and I was like,
yeah,
did I miss the war? I'm like, I'm very confused. We're just having fights. But like the wars were just contained to they're very cordial wars.
Yes.
That's one of those things that reminds me of Greek and Roman mythology, because the gods in those stories don't usually ever directly go against each other. They always use mortals to like hurt the other ones. So it's similar to those things.
But then you have like the gods actually meddling like more physically, like hurting people, like, you know, in a way that I was like, are you in this or are you out? Are we fighting by rules or are we not? Like, don't keep reminding me of the constraints. And then like, I don't know, it just felt like the world was a little constricted that way, and there wasn't a way to really up the ante because of like those rules that they had set up.
Not to switch topics, but I definitely agree with Maddie that Legend of Korra would have been a better comp. I like, you know, about in publishing and stuff, the comps, like sometimes they're untouchable. Like no one should use Harry Potter anymore. I think Avatar is getting to be that level because of popularity and everything. But like Legend of Korra, I'm actually starting it while I was reading this, and I'm like, okay, I can read one more chapter and then I can watch an episode. Yeah, so it was like motivating to like finish it. But yeah, I definitely agree with Legend of Korra and like pro bending and all of that. So.
Anything else?
I think I would have liked more like downtime with the two characters, because I feel like they meet each other and then they're like, I'm attracted to you, and then they like interact a couple more times and now they're absolutely in love.
And then they like trust each other a ton. Like, I never do that, and I'm like, okay, girl.
Like I could see what's the main guy's character? Matic.
Matic, yeah.
I could see why Matic would trust Ash, because he like can feel what everyone is feeling. So like, I could see that, but I would think that Ash would be a lot more like distrusting of everyone.
Didn't she sort of have it too, though? Like, she sort of would mention, like, she feels this other person's emotion, like, here and there. Like, I remember reading that and being confused because I'm like, she's of two different, whatever the word is for the two different kinds of powers. So, like, is that part of the reason that she can sort of feel other people's emotions? It's not mentioned as much as, like, Maddox, but it was, like, here and there. She was like, this person feels frustrated right now. And I'm like, why do you know this? Yeah.
I wish he would have, like, known Tor more. Like, I feel like he was a father figure to Ash, and I wish they kind of would have explored that a little bit more. But she was already the most developed character, so.
I almost wish that some of the more devastating moments were like drawn out a little bit more, just so I could like feel for them. Like, she lost her magic, that should be way more devastating, but instead it was just like, she fell down and they put her in a box. Like, I was hoping that she would be like lost or like feel really like just down and out, but you don't really get those moments. And like, she watches her mom die, and that was kind of dramatic, but I thought it would be more dramatic.
Yeah.
And like, he finds what's her face's body, Maddox finds his sister's body. Like, that was kind of dramatic, but it could have been more. It could have just been more feeling, I guess.
It kind of did this too, but talking about like the downtime and how to like establish their relationship, but it could have probably done with like a scene, one of those like very tropey scenes where he's like, let me show you my world and my, like the real, and like meet the people, taste the food, and they like discover, and she's like, oh my God, you know, like that kind of thing. And then like a date. But
well, they had like the dance celebration thing that they danced at.
Oh, I totally forgot.
That was like 3 seconds of like plot before like they got in trouble.
And it kind of did like 30 seconds of like, he took her to the church too, and he was like, yeah, I used to beg here. But like moments like that where it was more like building outside of the arena and building the world and their characters, then you would have like been able to ship them. But we didn't get enough of that. So I just said that, like, delete 100 pages, but maybe we needed to add 100 pages. So
redistribute the 100 pages.
Anything else?
About Seneca for a second, I wish they would have like interjected a little bit more in the beginning so that we were like, it would be a better payoff for that twist.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I was like, ooh, and when you guys are like, the lady above his
apartment laundry,
I was like, oh, like that was not the thing. It was not the payoff that I really wanted.
I almost wish that she was more like kooky and like we got to see her stealing laundry more. I would have liked to invest in her and then find out through people. Like, that would have been real fun.
Yeah, I agree.
That's book 2, more laundry stealing. Like, we find stealing laundry. She doesn't, I don't know why. It's just the thing she does.
I did like that. I don't remember which character pointed out, but somebody was like, she's like 30 years older than my dad. And like I'm like, I'm glad that you pointed it out because I was thinking the same thing.
I just have this visual of like Melisandre taking off her necklace.
Exactly. Which is why I expected her to turn into like I expected like a reverse effect of her to turn into like a beautiful woman. And I was like, not that she needs to, but I'm like, isn't that like what we do?
I think the reason she's old is because of like them stripping her powers from her. Because like that's why Ignitus had the like gray hair, like taking away the power makes you mortal.
But she's been eating people for like years. Like
should have refilled her lifeblood.
Yeah, like the people she ate. Like, I am young, you know, like very hocus pocus. Like, I don't know.
Yes.
Like that's what I was expecting. That's what we do with this trope. Like, come on.
Yeah, I was thinking it would be like a Stardust situation where if she gets the youth, she can like be young and beautiful.
This is what happens with these books that are like super like tropey in this way that they hit, like they remind you of so many other things. And this was happening to me all the time while I was reading. I was like, oh, like this, like this, like this. It could have been like, I don't know, all these other things, which is fun, but also in this case, it almost hurts the book a little bit because I was like Sam said, like, oh, this thing did it a little bit better, but that's okay. We're moving on. All right, Sam, you're a no for moving on with the series. Paige?
Yeah. We'll see how long it takes for it to come out. Because like right now, yes, but like in a year, like you said, I probably won't be compelled to pick it up.
Connor?
I can see myself moving on just to know what the other gods are like. Maybe I'll borrow it from the library at some point when I can't think of anything else to read.
Have you rethought your rating?
No. Still in a 3.
Jordan?
Yeah, I'll read the sequel.
Kayla?
I'll probably read the sequel.
All right. You guys got to fill us in if we don't read it. So.
Let you know all the future laundry stealing.
I completely forgot that I have to announce the next book. Paige, you know it.
Yeah, it is Son of a Trickster by Edan Robinson. She is an Indigenous author here in Canada. She lives in BC. And it is basically steeped in Indigenous folklore, and it follows a teenage boy named Jared. I've read it before, if you could not tell, but I'm going to be reading it again because there's a TV show coming out here in Canada based on that series.
Yeah. So Son of a Trickster is the book for this month, September. We keep doing this a week behind, but this is September's pick for House Salt, and we hope you guys will read along with us. Anything else? I think that's it. We did it. We talked 50 minutes about this book. I'm so All right. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys again next time. Bye.